All right, now it's time for the best card of all time. UFC 300 is next weekend. Fun fact, we're actually going to be there. We're super pumped. It's an amazing card. So why not give you guys the predictions? This card, honestly, is one of the hardest cards to predict in a long time because all the fights are great and are going to be super close. And we're going to start with two of the best prelims and then move to the main card. So the first major prelim is going to be Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. This one I've kind of been back and forth on, but I'm going to pick Aljamain Sterling for this fight.
I'm also picking Aljamain Sterling. Calvin Kattar is coming off of an ACL tear. Aljamain Sterling is coming off of a loss, but he came off of a pretty dominant bantamweight title run. It did have a couple lucky moments in there, but you can't deny that Aljamain Sterling is a great fighter. And for me, it mostly comes down to the fact that Aljamain Sterling has been more active. Calvin Kattar's been out for a while. And Aljamain Sterling, like I said before, is a great fighter, and I think that he's going to take this fight. And I think he's being very smart by going with a little bit of an easier matchup at featherweight. We see so many people jump into an upper weight class and jump to an extremely difficult fight, but he's doing the same thing that Deiveson Figueiredo is doing, where he kind of did more of a feeler fight, and I think this is a great idea for Aljamain Sterling, and I see him winning this fight.
Yeah, and then a lot of people forget to mention with the O'Malley fight that it was a little unlucky for Sterling. It was an early stoppage. Not only that, but they rushed Sterling in there for O'Malley's sake. I think there's no argument with that. With Sterling, he had a lot of time to bulk up to featherweight. I'd even say he has more of a featherweight frame than a bantamweight frame because he was a massive bantamweight. Maybe add a little size. He probably doesn't even need to add that much size to get into a good featherweight frame. And I think Aljamain Sterling's grappling and wrestling is going to show out here, especially with the fact that he was taking down Cejudo. I mean, Merab did it as well, but if Sterling can wrestle with an Olympic world champion, I'm sure that he can wrestle with Calvin Kattar. My only issue is I think that Calvin Kattar's jab is very good, but with Sterling, if he wants to fight southpaw, he might, which he does from time to time.
Yeah, he's also a heavy kicker as well.
And he's a heavy kicker. Very unorthodox. I think Kattar will struggle with that, and I just don't like the injury from Kattar jumping into this fight against a former world champion. So I'm going to pick Sterling for those reasons as well.
Yeah, so next fight, Alexander Rakic versus Jiří Prochazka, former champion again, which just shows how stacked UFC 300 is. And just kind of like the Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar fight, Alexander Rakic coming off of an injury, so that's why I see Jiří Prochazka winning this fight.
I'm the same way as well. Rakic, to be honest, I'm not that familiar with Rakic. He hasn't fought in a long time either. And Prochazka, I mean, I know he got knocked out by Pereira, but he was looking good, and he had Pereira on the ropes multiple times. He's very unorthodox. Clearly, I mean, I'd say Pereira, from a striking perspective, is probably Prochazka's worst matchup with the leg kicks and the power. I just don't think that, even though Rakic is more clean, I don't think he's as bad of a matchup as Pereira was, and Prochazka was giving him a lot of problems. His power is good. Prochazka's actually even dealing with, I think it was a staph infection, could have been something else the week before the fight or the week of the fight, and he still performed at his best. I think Prochazka takes this one. I think he's going to knock him out, get back into the title picture. And with Rakic coming off an injury again like Kattar, jumping into a very difficult match against a former champion, these fights are very similar in terms of that aspect, and I think Prochazka will knock him out.
Yeah, I think coming off of the injury is a pretty big factor. I think ring rust is definitely a thing. The only person that I can think of that ring rust doesn't affect is Jon Jones, but Jon Jones is the best fighter of all time, and it's pretty much the same with Aljamain Sterling and with Calvin Kattar. Alexander Rakic coming off an injury, and like you said, Jiří Prochazka looked pretty impressive in his fight against Alex Pereira, and that was his first fight back after that shoulder injury that he had. He was probably just feeling out the fight. I mean, it did take him a good round to actually get into it and start backing Alex Pereira up and showing his striking. Jiří Prochazka is a former champion for a reason. He's a high-level fighter. Like you said, he had a staph infection. Probably still just getting that ring rust off of him in that fight. And I think we'll see the best version of Jiří Prochazka in this fight.
And I also like the fact that he's active, jumping back in after just only 5 months off. Prochazka probably had one of the worst first rounds he could have had in the Pereira fight with the leg kicks just absolutely destroying him.
And he still did well.
Came into the second round and did tons of damage. But what is very astounding to me is he's actually the underdog going into this fight, which for me and him being in Vegas, we're going to probably put some money on Prochazka.
Yeah. Just
because I don't like those. I mean, it's a good, from a betting perspective for us, it's a good fight to bet on. Not advertising betting, but from a UFC sports betting perspective, Prochazka is a great pick.
Yeah. So next fight, Bo Nickal fight. We don't really need to talk about this. UFC just giving Bo Nickal a free win here, trying to pipe him up for future pay-per-view sakes, most likely, if Bo Nickal gets up to that level, which he probably will.
Yeah, so here's going to be our Bo Nickal, Cody Brennan analysis. Bo Nickal will win by submission.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on to our favorite fight, that's it, right? Our favorite fight of the card. My brother has been talking to me about this fight a lot, talking about how it's so high level. Charles from the Bronx Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Not going to lie, obviously we're known for our connections with Leon Edwards. Other than Leon Edwards, our favorite fighter is Charles Oliveira, so there may be some bias here. However, I'm picking Charles Oliveira to win this fight.
I'm also picking Charles Oliveira, but like you said, I think this is going to be such an exciting fight, such a high-level fight. Both of these guys, great strikers, both of them great grapplers, but I don't see Tsarukyan being on Oliveira's level with the striking. And the thing with Oliveira, that the only guy that beat him was Makhachev, and you can make the argument that he just wasn't there in that fight. But Oliveira is just so deadly. I mean, the fact that he finishes everybody, nearly everybody that he fights, he's not only deadly on the ground, but recently in his last fights, I would say the Gaethje fight was when I started to notice how much power he has and how much people fear him. I mean, Justin Gaethje was literally saying he's never gotten hit that hard before. Dariush got knocked out, and probably a big reason why Tsarukyan was able to knock him out. And just having that threat is such a big factor. And then Oliveira is very good on ground. I feel like people underestimate what he did against Islam Makhachev on the ground. I think people just see that someone's on top and someone's on the ground, and they think that they're getting dominated, when in reality, Charles Oliveira was actually having a lot of success on the ground.
Yeah, Oliveira's comfortable on the ground. I've heard him in an interview say, when I'm on the ground, on my back, I'm the most comfortable. And like he was saying with the Islam fight, people just look at it as top fighter, bottom fighter. When Islam won that fight on the feet because of his great striking defense and then obviously landing the hook where he got the submission on a dazed Charles Oliveira, I mean, that's what ended up happening. It wasn't the ground stuff. And Arman Tsarukyan with the grappling, if he can control Oliveira on the ground, that's great. I don't see him doing any damage on there.
Yeah, and Dariush actually has some problems with Oliveira on the ground as well.
You know, and I don't see him doing any damage on the ground. At best, I mean, I'm talking about best case scenario, Arman Tsarukyan avoids all these power shots from Oliveira on the feet and takes him down and holds him there for 3 rounds. I just don't see that happening. I think a lot of people are going to overrate Tsarukyan's striking just because he knocked out Dariush, but is Arman Tsarukyan marching down Poirier and fighting Poirier in the boxing range? Is he striking with Gaethje? And I mean, Oliveira essentially knocked out Gaethje. And with Chandler, the same thing. Oliveira, it's not Chandler, it's not Gaethje, it's not Poirier, is the power puncher at 155. And Tsarukyan better hope his top control works because Oliveira is dangerous on the ground. He almost got Makhachev in a triangle and in a couple of leg locks. And this is one of the best top control guys we've ever seen in the UFC. So with Oliveira, he can beat him on the feet, he can beat him on the ground. I think Oliveira will do his old-fashioned, knock him down and submit him.
And the last 3 camps that Oliveira has been for grappling-heavy opponents. Although the last 2 were for southpaws, they're both obviously grappling-heavy opponents. So Oliveira is going to be coming in from 2 camps from very similar matchups. And this is a big jump for Tsarukyan. He hasn't fought someone at Charles Oliveira's level. He did fight a younger Islam Makhachev, but not to this standard. And obviously Oliveira being in his prime and understanding how good this guy is, I think it's definitely a jump up, although Islam Makhachev was a good fighter at the time, but Islam Makhachev wasn't the Islam Makhachev that he is now. I see Oliveira finishing him in the 2nd round.
Absolutely. And just like the Prochazka thing, Oliveira's a plus 200 underdog. So if you want a sports bet.
Yeah, I mean, he was the underdog for Dariush.
Yeah, it's the same thing. We got that. We would have gotten that one right. That was before our channel. Oliveira plus 200 and Prochazka plus 110 at the moment. Those are the best bets if you're going to do that. But moving on to the next fight, it's going to be Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje for the BMF title. Not gonna lie, Holloway's bulking up. He looks good in his videos, but the brain side of me, the thinking side of me, is gonna pick Justin Gaethje to win this fight.
I think Justin Gaethje will win as well. I think people think that it's so easy to bulk up 10 pounds. It's not that simple of a process. It takes a little bit of time. I mean, that's why John Jones took a long time to bulk up, although it's different with him going up to heavyweight. It does take some time. That's why I mentioned with the Aljamain Sterling fight, as well as with Davis and Figueiredo, taking some time to get accustomed to that weight, bulking up a little bit. Max Holloway's doing it pretty fast, and honestly, the biggest reason why I'm going with Justin Gaethje is that he's fighting in his weight class, and Justin Gaethje is not even that big of a lightweight, which could favor Max Holloway, but Justin Gaethje has always said that when he was wrestling that he did his best when he didn't cut that much weight. So I think when you have a fighter coming up to another fighter's weight class, it's going to be hard to predict them.
Yeah, and Holloway's been outclassed by Volkanovski. I think if Volkanovski fought Gaethje, it'd be a relatively close fight, while Volkanovski 50-45'd Holloway. And when you do the jump from 145 to 155, you can say I'm wrong, you can say you disagree, but I think it's actually 155 is a more skilled division. So I think Holloway will kind of see that. When he fought Poirier, people are saying that he wasn't ready, he wasn't bulked up when they fought at 155, and that was an younger Max Holloway. And I just think that you could see that the power kind of got to him in that fight. He almost got knocked down in that fight.
Yeah.
And
you actually got to see what it is.
Yeah, and Gaethje's been looking better than ever in his last several fights. I mean, with Holloway's cardio, I think it could give him a good shot toward the end of the rounds. But Gaethje gets into these wars, and I just don't see Holloway being able to hurt Gaethje. And I think that's going to favor Gaethje a lot. He might take some risks, maybe eat one to land a huge one, and I think Gaethje will end up winning the fight.
Yeah, so we're both picking Justin Gaethje, but on to the main event, Alex Pereira versus...
We're skipping the women's code? Oh. This guy hates women's MMA.
No, yeah, Zhang Weili versus Yao Zhang. He's a big Yao Zhang fan.
I'm a big Yao Zhang fan. It's a joke between us, but people don't realize Yao Zhang's actually pretty solid.
Yeah.
She knocked out Jessica Andrade.
I forgot. I'm a big women's MMA fan, but I can't believe I forgot that.
Yeah, he forgot. Unbelievable. But Yao Zhang is a lot better than most people think. She's actually a skilled women's fighter. You can take that how you want it. But Yao Zhang knocked out Jessica Andrade in her last fight. Her boxing is very good. I think she trains at Uriah Faber's gym, so she's got her Chinese buddy Song Yadong over there. But my only issue, I'm thinking of this like logically. You have Yao Zhang, who's on the come up at 34 years old, fighting a long-reigning champion who's also 34, who's been better than her forever, which is Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is the best women's fighter, pound for pound #1 women's fighter, in my opinion. I believe it might be Alexa Grasso. If it is, it's stupid. But Zhang Weili is #1 pound for pound, in my opinion. And although Yao Zhang is good, I think we'll see levels, and I think Zhang Weili will win this fight, and I'm very confident in saying that.
Yeah, I think that she's going to show levels as well. I thought the Zhang Weili versus Amanda Lemos fight was going to be a lot closer, just because Zhang Weili, when she fought Rose Namajunas, actually got out-grappled by Rose Namajunas, but then she just out-grappled Amanda Lemos so easily, and I can just see the exact same thing happening. Zhang Weili is just a more complete MMA fighter, so I see her winning this fight pretty easily.
Okay, now moving on to the main event. I would say the last fight is the people's main event, but main event, Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. We were both talking a lot this week. We have gotten, on the history of this channel, every single main event right. However, if there's one that we
think... every title fight too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that's right. Every single title fight we've done this year, we've gotten it right. But we were both talking about, there is a fight that we think that is the closest and we might end our streak. It's this one. We're both picking Alex Pereira. But there is a realistic world that I see where Jamahal Hill knocks out Alex Pereira.
Yeah, I see that as well. We've both been thinking about this a lot. Jamahal Hill is obviously a very great fighter, and I think he's kind of a bad matchup for Alex Pereira. He's a natural southpaw. Alex Pereira loves that low kick, and Jamahal Hill has fantastic boxing, and it seems like Alex Pereira's weakness is boxing defense. All
right, camera cut out there because we lost battery, but when we're talking about the fight, a lot of people forget Jamahal Hill is only lost one fight, and the only fight he lost was to Paul Craig, who also beat Magomed Ankalaev by submission. So that's not a bad loss. I haven't heard anybody talk about how Jamahal Hill was the champion before he got injured. The guy was a knockout artist, knocking out literally everybody. So obviously going into this Pereira fight, he's got a lot of power. Pereira's chin is pretty sus. I mean, he got knocked out by Adesanya.
Yeah, it looked like he was getting stunned against Yuri
as well.
Times.
So Jamahal Hill is very good, but the issue is, I almost feel like he's coming in on short notice. They were preparing for next month. He had probably the worst injury you could have as a fighter, which is an Achilles injury, and his was pretty bad, and he's jumping right back in there. Are we going to see the same Jamahal Hill? I can't guarantee you that we will.
Yeah, again, another fighter coming in off of an injury. Ring rust is a thing, and you actually might be thinking, whoa, I think Jamahal Hill might win because you guys have been hyping him up. But the reason why I think that Alex Pereira is going to win is because Alex Pereira is a very skillful fighter. Although there seems to be a big conception because Jamahal Hill is a natural southpaw, Alex Pereira has great leg kicks, that this is going to be an issue, I struggle to believe the fact that Alex Pereira doesn't have tools against southpaws.
I agree. I mean, I feel like there has to be a reason why Israel Adesanya did not fight him southpaw. There must be a reason, because Izzy's essentially a switch stance fighter, and he would go to southpaw every so often.
He fought Vittori the entire fight southpaw.
Yeah, and and then when he fought against Pereira, especially the second fight, Pereira was hurting his leg, and even when Adesanya would go to southpaw, Pereira was landing the front leg kick very similarly to the way he lands the back leg right leg kick. And I think he's got a lot of weapons there, and I feel like there has to be a reason why Adesanya fought him orthodox rather than southpaw. Because when you fight Pereira orthodox, the leg kick is there and the left hook is more available, which are his two best weapons, so it doesn't really make much sense. And Adesanya is one of the best strikers we've ever seen, so there must be some knowledge that he has for reason not to fight Pereira as a southpaw. Pereira's been fighting southpaw kickboxers to the highest level in glory, and Jamahal Hill is not he's not any different, at least not any better than these glory kickboxers.
Yeah, the main reason why I'm picking Alex Pereira, like we said, it's not a super confident pick. If we're going to lose our streak in terms of picking title fight wins, I think this one is going to be the one that we're going to lose. But the reason why I'm picking Alex Pereira is that I really struggle to pick against him in a kickboxing fight. I see this being a kickboxing fight, and Jamahal Hill stated that he's going to keep this fight on the feet. When you're fighting Alex Pereira in a kickboxing fight, many fighters have tried it, and I just don't see Jamahal Hill winning that fight against someone who's an 8-time glory kickboxing champion.
I agree. Jamahal Hill also hasn't fought a kickboxer near Alex Pereira's level. Alex Pereira is also very long, no homo, but Alex Pereira is going to be a lot lankier than anybody Jamahal Hill's ever fought, and it's going to be something new to Jamahal Hill. He's going to have to close the distance and land some big shots. I get Johnny Walker was bigger and he landed on Johnny Walker, but come on, Johnny Walker's not the high level, especially when it comes down to pure kickboxing like Pereira is, and I agree with him. Can't bet against Pereira in a kickboxing fight, which is why we think Alex Pereira will be and still at UFC 300 main event.